Hello everybody and welcome to week 9. This week you're going to keep going forward with the research process on our research papers, and you're going to take the preliminary research from last week, which led to some kind of a working thesis, I hope. And that working thesis or your research question is going to guide your research this week. And then that research is going to lead to the annotated bibliography and the research proposal, which are due at the end of the week. So what I want to do here is just give a quick overview on how to take notes this week as you start your research. So first, let's talk about why bother taking notes. So there's a couple of reasons. The first one, of course, is to understand what it is that you're reading. As the quote on our week 9 D2L page says, "He listens well who takes notes," he or she. So we want to make sure that we're understanding what it is that we're reading and not wasting our time and just letting our eyeballs move across the page. So that's the first reason. The second reason is we want to avoid plagiarism. So as we learned in a couple of weeks ago, it's critical in research writing and in doing research that we keep them separated. We got to keep separated what they say and what we say. So we want to make clear that we are noting any ideas or words or phrases that belong to others. And so the careful note-taking will help us to do that. The third reason, of course, is we are information gathering. And what we're going to gather is little bits of information. We don't know exactly what order they're going to go in. So we want to, if we find an interesting fact or turn of phrase or a quotation, we want to get that down and then mark where we got it from. Because the process of research is kind of like getting a whole bunch of puzzle pieces. And you might have an idea of the shape of the puzzle when you're starting to do the research, but you're not exactly sure. And then once we have the research done, you're going to look at all the research that you have, all the notes, and you're going to form a picture in your head and try to fit those pieces, those note cards, those bits of research into your picture. All right, how do I take notes? Really, any way you want. There are a whole host of possible ways. I've seen students use Evernote. I've seen students use Noodlebib, which is an online tool. Evernote is an app. There's another app called Simple Note, or you can just use good old note cards, old-fashioned index cards. That's actually my favorite. So I'm going to show you via the vehicle of the index cards how to take notes, but what I talk about on the index card is going to apply to any kind of note-taking device or means that you choose. So every note is an idea from a source. Well, most of them are from a source. And each of those notes needs to have certain information. So this is the system you're going to use. The first thing, of course, is you're going to have the idea, the other person's idea, not ideas, one idea per card. So you are going to take a lot of note cards. This can take the form of a paraphrase, where you're putting the other person's ideas totally into your own words, a summary, where you are summarizing the other person's ideas, or a direct quotation. And if you have that, make sure you put those words exactly as they are in the source in quotation marks. So that's the first thing each note needs. Second, you want to summarize that note in a word or a phrase. That's the topic that the note is about. It'll be clear in a couple of minutes why that is important. Third, you need some kind of a reference as to which bibliographic source this note came from. So you don't want to keep the full bibliographic information on each note card. That would take too long. So some kind of a system where you can connect the note that you're taking to the source it came from. And then finally, if the source was a print source, you need to indicate even the page number. If it's a web source, there's no need for page numbers. So for example, okay, let's say we're taking notes in the body here of the note. You're going to take, this is where you're going to put the note, the direct quotation and quotation marks, or the paraphrase in your own words, or the summary. Quick note, it's better to paraphrase now at the note-taking stage than later. It does actually save time. Later you're going to be so busy. The end of the semester gets crazy. So it's better to paraphrase now, and it also helps to prevent plagiarism. So that's the first part. The second thing you remember is a topic that this note is about. So you don't want to have to read the whole note card when you've got 50 to 100 note cards. But if you have a short word or phrase here that this is about, it's going to be helpful. Third, you want to keep track of where this source came from. So some people color code it. Some people use alphabet, A for different note cards, and then the page number if it's a print source. I like to put the last name of the author and then the page number. But however you want to do it, up here you're going to have some kind of an indication of which source this information came from. This process you can also use for your own ideas. So you can still put the idea here in the body, okay? And you can still sort of summarize that into a word or a phrase. And the source would be you. So you can put, Michelle, or however you want to do that. So the full bibliographic information is going to go in a separate place. You can just start a works cited list. You can have bibliographic cards. So let's say you were going to do cards. I would have a different citation for each source that I'm using. Remember, for this paper, you're going to need 6 sources at least. So you have a different citation for each source. So for example, this one's from our textbook. Let's say I read the article, Why I Just Asked My Students to Put Their Laptops Away by Clay Shirky. And in reading, I found this interesting note. Even if you're not the person looking at a screen, even if you're in the room with screens, they can be distracting. So that's a paraphrase that I made. And then I quoted part of a phrase of his that I thought was particularly interesting and well put. In a manner akin to secondhand smoke. So that came from the Shirky article. This is a print source, so it's on page 212. And what is this about? It's about the effects of screen time. Okay. On a separate card, I would have, or again, you can keep this in a document on your laptop, however you want to keep it, somewhere else, have the full bibliographic information. So I know that this comes from this source, okay, the Shirky. And this is the MLA format for an article that's in a collection. So that's why that looks like that. Now, why I do it this way is I feel like I'm making things easier for myself, because what I do is in the upper right-hand corner, this is essentially the in-text citation when I go to write my paper up. This guy over here becomes the entry on my works cited list. So I kind of do a lot of the work as I go along, and when I go to put the paper together at the end, it's super easy. Again, you can have any kind of system you want as long as you're keeping track of information, where it came from, including the page number if it's a print source, and then what the topic is. How many notes? I can't tell you. Some people have 25, some people have 125. So it's up to you. But you just, in the beginning, you're just kind of taking them, and I don't know, you can organize them as you go along, but a lot of times you don't know how they're going to be organized. Some people do organize as they go along, so they have an idea of, like, maybe section 2 is going to be background information. So you might put all the background information in pink note cards or something. You can color code. This is just an example. There is any number of ways you can organize them, but really, as you're taking notes, don't worry too much about organizing them. I put this guy here just because some people do like to organize a little bit as they go along. So they, for example, know that they're going to put all the counter argument stuff together and all the argument stuff together and all the introduction or background stuff together. Just a thought. So after you've taken all your notes, or most of them anyway, you do start to organize them. And here's where those topics become important. So I may have from 4 different sources: Shirky, a book by Shirky, an article by Smith, a book by Chen, and some website called Screen Life. I might have from all those sources information on effects of screen time. So I would lump all of these together because I know that they have the same topic. So that's why the topic becomes important. All right, so that's a quick overview. The research process, if you're feeling a little daunted, don't worry. Take it as you go. Please talk to me especially if this is your first time doing this kind of a thing, or if you hit roadblocks. It's not as bad as it looks. It can be a little solitary sometimes, but hopefully you enjoy that solitude. Don't forget about the reference librarians. Don't forget me. Don't forget about your peers. And hopefully you have a little bit of fun with it too. All right, everybody, good luck this week. Have a great week.